we're here to take a little trope through how we can, fight brains with a little bit of email shenanigans, which is quite exciting. But really, we're talking about cognitive bias. And as we go through this, please do ask questions at the end and think about things. Also, before I forget, because I'm going to fucking forget, there is a cheat sheet right at the end that you guys can opt in for and then unsubscribe for afterwards. That's okay. But there's a cheat sheet just when we're getting into the cognitive bias nitty-gritty stuff in case your hands get sore, because I kind of tend to go a bit fast. All right, so you guys can have that towards the end. So don't worry too much about taking notes. So we're going to chat a little bit about how brains make decisions and how cognitive biases like to ruin the decision-making process, and then the role that email has in sort of helping us make better quality decisions, and also about how we're all assholes in this room. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. That's the scene set. Let's rock and roll. So because you don't have enough pictures of my face already, this is another picture of me. I'm Kenda McDonald, and I am the CEO and founder of Automation Ninjas, and we're a behavioral marketing automation agency. And everybody's like, what does that mean? Basically, it means that my background is in forensic psychology, and that's what I originally studied. I was supposed to go into criminal profiling, and then I kind of got totally sidetracked by marketing, which is kind of cool, maybe, or maybe super nerdy. But what I spend most of my day doing, what my agency does, is help people understand how people make decisions, how the brain actually works when it comes to making purchase decisions, and the implications that, that has for your marketing and the way you structure things out. I'm also the author of the best-selling book, Hack the Buyer Brain, which is quite nice to be able to say. But effectively, that's all about how we evolve to survive and not to buy stuff online, and the implications that that has for your marketing. Are we seeing a trend here, a theme developing as we're going through things? I'm also a professor, so I lecture at a couple of universities because I don't have enough to do, and I talk about brain stuff. But what I really spend most of my day doing is building pretty flowcharts, because everybody loves a color-coded flowchart, right? And really helping people understand how the way that we make decisions and the way that we go about paying attention affects our marketing and what we need to be doing to change all of that. So what I want you guys to be able to take away from all of this is that as we're going through the process, and what I've seen with the hundreds of clients that I've worked with over the years, is that people don't really understand how buying is a massive decision-making process. And we have to reverse engineer from that. And one of the problems that we have in email, so obviously email marketing is the major component part of what we do. One of the problems we have in email is we've siloed ourselves away from the actual purchasing process. And we tend to get completely distracted and think about, oh, this email's got to look so beautiful. It's got to have this. It's got to do that. The subject line's got to say this. And we forget that it's part of a much bigger process of marketing. And it has a really important and integral part to play in helping people make the right kinds of decisions. Unfortunately, our brains are kind of like the trash pandas. Everyone knows raccoons, right? I love raccoons. They're little hands and they wash everything obsessively. So effectively, our brains are kind of like that, but we're worse. We're kind of like the raccoon that has found the crack house and gone through their bins and found a stash of methamphetamine, right? That's basically what we're like when we come to making decisions. We are absolutely the worst. So when it comes to making a decision, there's all this complicated stuff that gets involved in it, and we're also trash pandas that are on crack, right? So we're not effectively doing a good job. And I want to show you exactly how complicated decisions are. So first and foremost, decision-making involves decision-making, right? I know because psychologists like to break everything down to stupid component parts. But when we're doing decision-making, we're trying to figure out how accurate our judgment is going to be on something. So we're going for accuracy when we're doing decision-making. But with purchases, we also have problem-solving. So generally, we're buying a product to solve a problem that we have. So we also now need to go, okay, how do we actually solve that problem? What's the process we need to go through? So we're undertaking an entire journey to figure out whether or not the product is the right solution to something. On top of that, you've got judgment, figuring out whether or not something is the appropriate option from a myriad of options. So we need to look at the accuracy of the decision and the implications of making the wrong decision. And then we also have the real nerdy bit, which is deductive and inductive reasoning. Now, deductive reasoning, we're in London, think Sherlock Holmes, right? You've got clues in front of you. You deduce that something is going to happen from everything that's laid out in front of you, nice and logical, boom, that's not how the brain works, okay? So effectively, we have all this logical stuff in front of us, and we make some decisions based on that logical criteria, but inductive reasoning gets involved as well. And inductive reasoning is when we make giant leaps in logic, right? Okay, we stereotype, we generalize, and we decide based on how we feel about things. That's not a logical thing to do. Spock would be very unhappy with all of us. And as we go through this process, we use deductive and inductive reasoning to decide whether or not something is good or bad or is a logical option for us to undertake. So we have all of this going on in our little trash panda minds. And it would be great if we were super logical about the process and we worked through it in a very specific way and always came out with the same options and the same reasons. Absolutely not what we do, because the brain at the end of the day is not our friend. The brain evolved to survive. That is it. It evolved to get your genes to the next day in the most efficient way possible. And as a result, it does some really random things when it comes to modern life, right? Modern life is not what it evolved to do whatsoever. So our brains are bad in quite a few different ways. The first thing and the worst thing that we do is we lazily save calories. We absolutely do not want to use calories. You use calories, you decrease your chances of survival. You're not getting your genes to the next day in the most efficient way possible, and it's not happy. Now, if you go back even just like a couple hundred years, and also in lots of places in the rest of the world where we're not as privileged as we are here, saving calories is really, really important. When we're making decisions in anything, and we're just going through day-to-day life, think about the amount of energy that your brain is using. It's creating electrical impulses by burning fat. That's fucking amazing, right? The brain is so cool. Okay, I think that. Maybe not everybody thinks that, but it's really cool. And so we want to minimize that, because the more calories you use, the more you use up your fat resources. The more you use up your fat resources, the more the body panics, and the more fat resources it wants to store. So we don't want to use our brains as much as we can. And we do cool stuff, like we do hill climbing. So hill climbing is where we have to make a decision, a complicated decision, and the brain goes, that's a lot of resources. It's a lot of cognitive load. I don't want to do that. And so it substitutes a smaller goal, and it sneaks it in, and it's like, haha, I've just saved you a lot of efficiency, right? Okay, great. Let's think about how that actually applied to real life. So let's say we have to buy a house. When you buy a house, you have to get a mortgage. You have to decide which banks you're going to apply to and which mortgage policy you're going to go through. And when you do that, they give you a shit ton of documentation, and you got to read through that shit to try and figure out what's the most important thing. And your brain goes, no, we're not doing that. We're not partaking in this today. So instead it goes, you know, HSBC had that really cool ad with that celebrity that I really like. And, you know, he did like that weird thing, and I really like that. And I like their branding, so that's the one I'm going to choose. But it doesn't tell you this is happening. You just look at HSBC and feel warm, fuzzy feelings, right? And that's the one that you end up choosing. And that's totally inappropriate. That's hill climbing, happening in the background without you even noticing it's happening, because it's saving you calories, which is not something I want my brain to do. It can use as many calories as it likes. I'd be very happy if it did that. But we do other stuff as well. We transfer and we conflate. So transferring is when we take previous emotional experience and we apply it to now. So I had a bad experience doing that, so I'm now immediately guarded and feeling defensive when I'm going into the situation. Part of the reason we don't like speaking to salespeople, right? We might have had a bad experience previously, and now we're scared we're going to have a bad experience now. I don't want to reach out to customer support. I'm a millennial. I don't want to pick up the phone like ever, right? I don't know what bad experience I had, but I'm not talking to you on the phone. Please text me. Unless you're dying, then text me twice, okay? So I can say goodbye. And when it comes to conflating, conflating is where you take two things that aren't supposed to be put together and you smoosh them together. And they probably shouldn't be, but you're saving information, you're saving processing power, and you're saving capacity. Then we condense information, so we chunk everything down, so we don't have to think about everything that this person on stage is telling you. And we kind of just take away a few main core things, which is why there is a cheat sheet at the end, because I want you guys to take away specific information. And then we satisfice, and satisficing for me is the worst thing that we do. So satisficing is we will effectively have a criteria that we're looking for when we're wanting to make a decision, and as soon as we meet that criteria in the most satisfactory way possible, we go, okay, I'm done. We don't carry on. We don't find the best possible option. We just satisfy. So the brain likes to satisfy pretty much everything. And then we generalize and we double down on stuff as well. So generalization, your stereotypes come in here, all the racial profiling that we love to do as a society. Doubling down, we like to store information that we already have in the brain. So, we don't look for new information and we ignore contradictory information. So the brain is really bad for us, not just as businesses trying to sell a product or a service, but also as consumers that are trying to make decisions. Our brains are real dickheads at the end of the day. And all of this is happening because of our cognitive biases. So I like to think of the cognitive biases as the crack that the trash pandas have found around the back of that dodgy house, right? Because effectively, the cognitive biases are there to try and help you save and process. Gavin's laughing, and the reason I'm using this analogy is because I've had a lot of caffeine today, and Gavin asked me whether I was on crack. And I was like, no, Gavin, I just have ADHD, I'm like this all the time. So it's his fault if you keep hearing the word crack and you're triggered for it, okay? It's him, just blame him, it's not me. So effectively, yeah, biases saving us processing capacity all the time, but a bias is a corruption that happens when our brain takes shortcuts. So it's an error. It is a mistake that the brain is going through, and that means that we don't make logical conclusions when we're trying to save on processing capacity. So we're trying to make a good choice, we're trying to do it efficiently, we're trying to use as little calories as possible, and boom, we make a mistake because our brain is using a bias. And the biases are the things that we have identified as psychologists that the people are going to do all the time. The people, I say, like I'm not one of them. I don't know what that says about me. So let's talk about how biases actually happen. So we have something called dual process theory, which is how we take information in from the world around us and how we utilize that to make decisions. So there were two fantastic guys, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. They are Nobel Prize winning psychologists. They won the Nobel Prize in economics because what they were basically able to show is that whilst we take in information in these two different ways and we utilize them to make decisions, we make these identifiable mistakes continually, those cognitive biases. And they were able to show for the first time in the 70s that effectively we don't make logical decisions. We make fundamentally flawed decisions and in repeatable ways. And that's what they won the Nobel Prize for, because for the first time, and this was when behavioral economics was born, for the first time we were able to go, right, brains are dickheads and we need to do something about it. That's what they should have called their book as well. I think. So effectively, dual process theory works as such. We have these two systems that we use to take in information from all around us. We have system 1 and system 2. System 1 is super fast, whereas system 2 is much slower. Hence their book, Thinking Fast and Slow. These guys are super inventive, right? They need branding. They need branding. System 1 is so fast it could basically be called automatic. It kind of runs in the background. It does its thing. And system 2 is our much more manual process that we utilize to make higher level decision making. They like to call system 1 the autopilot, and they like to call system 2 the pilot, which kind of shows you where they were weighting, how important the two systems were. Now, the challenge here is that the autopilot, we don't have access to that. Right? It runs in the background, it does its own thing. The pilot is the person we like to think of as us, the person that is hopefully paying attention at this point in time, even though it is the afternoon and I'm standing between you and alcohol and mini golf. Okay, so effectively the pilot is how we like to think of ourselves. Now the challenge with that is that system 1, the real difference between the two, system 1 takes in 11 million bits of information per second. That's a lot of information, like a lot of information. System 2 only takes in 40 bits of information per second. So if we think about us sitting there as these pilots feeling in control of our own destiny, who's in control really? It's the trash pandas. That's not a good time. I mean, it is a good time if you're me, but hey-ho. So effectively, we have these two different systems. Now, system 1 can only take in that much information per second because it uses a series of rules and mental shortcuts to understand the world around us, partition information off, and make decisions. Whereas system 2 is intensive, it is effortful, and of course, it uses them calories. And so the brain does not want to use system 2 at all costs. Now, when we talk about dual process theory, people kind of get hung up on the term theory, right? So I wanted to show you a couple of, I mean, if you're a scientist, you know that that's not something to get hung up on. But I wanted to show you a little bit of neuroscience so that we can see how the different parts of the brain are interacting. So I wanted to show you a cognitive bias actually happening in real time. So this was a experiment done by Gould and Dolan in 2013. Thank God we have lovely fMRI scanners inside universities now. We've had some very exciting insights into neuroscience. But they kind of got people to do a syllogism experiment, which is a reasoning experiment. So I do want everybody to just indulge me. I want everyone to say syllogism. Okay, so we're ready? 1, 2, 3, syllogism. Don't you feel great? Isn't it like the most ridiculous word you've ever come across? Syllogism. I like it. I think it's a ridiculous word. Thank you for indulging my strange tendencies. So effectively, a syllogism is an interesting logical fallacy that we go through. So basically, the idea is if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then B is equal to if A is equal to B and A is equal to C, then B is also equal to C, right? That's a syllogism. I'm sure nobody is clear on that, especially since I cocked it up. But effectively, the way that this works in real life is, let's say I phone you. I don't know where I got your phone number or why I'm phoning people, but I phone you and I'm like, okay, I have just found an injured bird in the road. It's about medium size and it's black. What do I do? Now, pretty much everyone in the room has got a picture of a bird inside their head at this point in time. Where the fuck did that come from? I have given you not enough information to decide whether that is a blackbird or a crow, right? And those are the two things that people tend to come up with when you give them that statement, depending on the place in the world that you're from. That is a syllogism. That is your brain extrapolating from small amounts of information and going bloop, 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 and coming up with what it thinks is a logical conclusion. That's the sound effect, by the way, when you make decisions. It's bloop, bloop, bloop. So what they did was they basically gave people not enough information in the way that I just did, in which belief was going to get involved and create a reasoning statement. So it was going to create a bias, which is exactly what your brains just did. And then another one in which they gave them enough information that that wouldn't be the case. Okay, so they took people through that, and the two different parts of the brain fired depending on context that people were given. So what we have is the belief-neutral reasoning, where people were given enough information to not make a mistake. That is system 2 firing. And then on the other side, the belief-laden reasoning, where people weren't given enough information and cognitive bias got involved, an entirely different part of the brain fired. And then they went a little bit further and they did I can't even say it. They did some trials in which they stopped that from happening in various different ways. So it's our first real evidence of exactly what's going on inside the brain when cognitive bias gets involved, and the first real concrete proof of the two different systems that we utilize to understand the world around us. Now, I don't like talking about system 1 and system 2 in that way, because quite frankly, it's confusing to everybody, and I'm not that clever. So I like to think about system 1 as the minions from Despicable Me, and as system 2 as Gru from Despicable Me. Who's watched this movie? Oh, thank fuck for that. Right. Anybody who hasn't watched the movie, like, forget about everything. Forget about all the nice emotional fluff you've learned. Forget about making your friends. Fucking forget them. You're going to go watch this movie afterwards because it's very important to your life growth path, okay? So effectively, the premise of the movie, even though we're pretty much all familiar with it, stop laughing, Jess. She can't laugh quietly. I enjoy that about you. The main premise of the movie is we've got Gru. He's this kind of criminal mastermind. He sort of has all these plans about how he's going to take over the world and do all this cool shit. And he kind of can only do so much. So he only got 2 hands, right? He can only do so much. So he kind of either employs or enslaves this little race of yellow people who run around and do all the stuff for him. I don't know what that says about society, but hey-ho, that's not my job. So they kind of run around and they do all this stuff. Now, the problem with the minions is they're not very bright. So effectively, it's 1 minion, 1 job. 1 minion uses the spanner, another minion uses the hammer, and it's okay because there's thousands of them running around doing the shit, right? Except they fuck shit up, like all the time, catastrophically. That's your brain, woo! That's exciting, isn't it? So the minions sort of tripping over themselves and making mistakes is cognitive biases, right? And the rest of the time, it's our heuristics, the rules that we have in place to understand the world around us. So effectively, this is exactly how our brain is. And the challenge with marketing is we always like to create marketing for Gru. We only spend 15% of our day in GRU mode. The other 85% of our day, we're in minion mode. And the minions are the gatekeepers to GRU's attention. So when GRU wants something, and he goes, okay, I want to figure out what syllogism actually means, and goes and types that in ye olde Google, when the search results pop up, 40 bits of information per second isn't even enough capacity to read a page. Right? It's not even that level of information. The minions are going to go through the page and find the information that you're going to pay attention to. So they're going to decide first what you actively pay attention to. Now that's terrifying because they make mistakes all the time. So effectively, we have to be marketing to system one. That's our job, is to market to them. And they're going to fuck shit up the entire time. And those little mistakes that they make are cognitive biases. So the minions rule. They control all of our attention, they control what we do with our attention, they get involved in decision making, and the whole time the brain is desperate to use them instead of using system two. It's desperate to make sure that it goes through rules and mental shortcuts rather than actually utilizing processing power and calories. So the challenge with that is those minions are going to make mistakes the whole time that thing is happening, and those mistakes are going to ruin your conversion rates. They're going to give us and our consumers a bad time. Now, when we think about bias, does anybody actually get this reference, by the way? Yes, I see you nerds. Thank you. I'm glad. Are you all developers? No. Oh, that's a surprise. It's generally the people that hide under the cupboard with their computers that are under the stairs in the cupboard. You know, the basement people are generally the people who get this. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So effectively, we have all the biases, right? We have over 300 different cognitive biases that have been identified, about 120 of them repeatedly able to sort of replicate the studies. And there was some great research done by Buster Benson. What a great name. I love his name. I want a cool name like that. I could just rename myself, I've just realized. That would be amazing. I think I should do that. Destroyer of Worlds, that's my new name. Okay, so effectively, he took this information about sort of 120 or so biases and grouped them into various different categories in which those biases are going to happen. So we have biases that are going to happen when we need to remember something, right? When we need to either encode or recall that information. We have biases that are going to happen when there's too much information out there and we can't decide between stuff and it's overwhelming. We have biases that happen when we need to act fast and we need to do things quickly. And we have biases that happen when we don't have enough meaning and have enough context. Now, when you think about each of those four categories, and they're not going to happen in isolation either, when you think about each of those four categories, all of them are going to get involved when you're making a decision and when you're marketing to your audience. Right? All of them are going to get involved. Cognitive biases are going to be there all the time. And this is why I'm not going to stand up here and tell you what the top 10 biases are that you can manipulate to get an audience to make a decision. It's not fucking possible. Okay? They're going to cascade off of one another. They're all going to get involved together, and they're all just going to ruin absolutely everything for you. That's my message. I'll leave now. So effectively, we have these four different categories that get involved. So we know that that's going to happen. Bias is definitely going to happen, and they are going to ruin your conversion rates. We're clear on that. And I wanted to show you 5 individual biases to just really drive the point home, but also because it's kind of fun to look at biases like really closely. We all get a bit nerdy about this, right? But I want to tell you about this. So we've got confirmation bias. I love this meme. It's one of my favorite memes. I'll give you a little second to read it. So confirmation bias is sort of really closely linked to the fact that we encode information, and once that information is in memory, our brain doesn't want to go out and replace that information in any other way. Nor it wants to put more information that matches that information because that's saving processing power. This is what is responsible for a lot of the issues that we had with people doubling down on incorrect information during the Trump campaigns, during a lot of the stuff that we've had with COVID. This is what is responsible for people coming up with crazy theories and conspiracy theories that they just double down on all the time. The worst thing about it is it's not just that it's going to take a look at option A and option B and be like, okay, well, option A leans towards the information that I want. We will even take ambiguous information that is neither option A or option B and go, this is mine. This is here for my opinion. It's not. We will skew data to match our own opinions because we are so desperate to save on processing power, right? So confirmation bias is a really, really hard bias to overcome. If your audience is out there and you are telling them contradictory information to what they already hold, and also contradictory information to what your competitors are telling them, you're going to have a bad time with confirmation bias because they're not going to want to listen to you. And most of the time, the minions are just going to filter them out completely, and you're not going to get paid attention to. So one of the best things that you can do is you can make someone think that it was their own idea, all right? That's the sneaky little trick that all women know when we're arguing. So effectively, sorry, have I just given a woman's secret away? I think I have. Also, shave your legs. No, I'm joking. So effectively, what we're going to do in this situation is you give people things like buyer's guides, and you try and get them involved in critical thinking. If someone is involved in critical thinking, you have the capability to get them to weigh things up. So if you get them to opt in for something that, like, where they want more information on how to make the right choice between something, you get them to fill out their own table comparing stuff, you're going to get them critically thinking, and you're going to increase the chances of them being able to overcome confirmation bias, right? It's a really nasty little bias, and it gets in real deep. Then we have the ambiguity bias. We hate ambiguous information. We absolutely cannot stand it. So it kind of makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. If I said to you, we've got two paths we could go down. This path is really fun because there might be lions, there might be dragons, there might even be sharks with laser beams. We might die, but we might also get to the end. Maybe, who knows? Don't know what's down there. And then you have path B, which is like, oh, it goes around the corner and then you're there and you get home safe and you don't get eaten by sharks. Which one are you going to choose? Okay, it's a very specific example, admittedly, but from an evolutionary standpoint, anything that has an unknown in it is dangerous and you might die, right? So anything that is concrete and clear, that's the one we're going to choose. And that means that even if your option is better than the competitor's option, because you've been ambiguous about the process, about the cost, please put your fucking pricing on your website, guys. Or at least tell people what goes into the pricing and what the constraints are if you can't tell them the actual pricing. Tell people what the steps are for onboarding, what the process is to buy stuff from you. People are interested in that when they're in that processing, when they're deciding, I'm going to buy something. They want to know all the details. And if you're ambiguous, even if your offer is better than someone else's and they're clear, they're going to choose them over you. All right, so ambiguity bias, massive conversion killer, and definitely something that makes me really sad when you see like beautiful sales pages and beautiful sales materials, and then you get to like this thing where you don't have enough information to actually make that decision. So sort that out. Number 3, we have anecdotal fallacies. Yay! So also, great meme. So effectively, an anecdotal fallacy, anecdotes are little stories and little snippets from somebody else. My brother's sister's wife's daughter, right? Told me this thing and I believe that over what the doctor said, or I believe that over what the news said, or I believe that over what the government has said in a governmental campaign. We are drawn towards stories, and if you think about the fact that for hundreds and thousands of years, we have passed information from person to person to person through storytelling. Even in this room, we've done something which I thought is always amazing. We've had mirror neurons firing. So when someone tells their story and they tell you what they're going through and you see emotion happen in somebody else, the only way that we can understand something is our brain has to emulate that thing happening to us. That's how we understand context and emotion from other people. So we have mirror neurons that fire when somebody is telling their story. It's why vulnerability is so important. That's empathy in us, is we understand someone else's emotions by our brain actually going through the same process of having that emotion. So when you tell a story, and when you give people context through data with a story, and people can see a person and they can understand that context, those anecdotes become really important, and we encode that in a better and stronger way than we do a testimonial that says, I got a 5 times ROI. So when you guys are creating case studies, they must be hero-led. When you have testimonials, for fuck's sakes, put a picture on it. Show me the person's face. I need to see the face so I can have the mirror neurons doing the thing. Also, just put little snippets of stories inside it. If you have stuff that is very heavily data-based, try and bring stories into it. There's a reason storytelling is so powerful in copywriting. All right, I love anecdotal fallacy. Then we have loss aversion. I bet everybody's done this, right? Guaranteed. I do it all the time. I'm bad. The worst thing about knowing a lot about cognitive biases is that you can actually just see the own bad behavior that you do, and you're like, oh, fuck, I did it, but it was good, and I enjoyed it while I was doing it. So effectively, loss aversion is when we actually feel the pain of losing something more keenly than the benefit of gaining something. So if we put that in sort of number terms, let's say losing out on free shipping is 5 points, and you get -5 points when you lose out on shipping, but getting free shipping is 3 points. We do not feel them equally. We feel the loss of something totally unevenly. And again, from an evolutionary standpoint, makes sense, right? Because you lose resources, you're gonna die. That's what the brain is thinking anyway. So loss aversion is something we need to be very, very clear on how people compare us to our competitors. Because they might be losing out on something by choosing us. They might be losing out on something our competitors are saying on their websites. People are not making decisions about you in a vacuum. Even if you're not talking about your competition, guaranteed they're looking somewhere else, right? We're in the research age. We've got all the information available to us. So loss aversion is something we need to be really, really clear on, and we need to show people, yes, these are all the risks associated with something, and these are the gains, and this is how it works out. Clear is kind, is a Brene Brown quote. Where are you, Matthew? I see you. Yeah. So loss aversion, something we need to be careful of. We need to think about how we structure that into our sales pages and how we help people understand what they're going to lose out for versus what the benefits are. And then we have number 5, the availability heuristic. This is me all the time, and I only ever watch horror movies. So it happens a lot. That Annabelle, that little bitch, the little doll, you know Annabelle? Has everyone seen Annabelle, the horror movie? Why are dolls so fucking creepy, right? Guaranteed I hear a noise in the house when I'm by myself. I'm like, Annabelle's coming for me. So the availability heuristic is effectively when we encode information into our memory and we can easily recall that information. The brain goes, that information's really important. Might not be important, might just be easy to recall it because we've recently had a certain experience or because we've seen an advert from BMW several times. Just because we can recall information easily doesn't mean it's more important, but the brain sure as hell thinks it is. So this is why companies like Nike and BMW have these massive awareness campaigns that they put out there where they use the mere exposure effect to just show up stuff frequently because we like it more. And we like it more because it's easy to recall. And why do we like that? Because we're lazy brains, right? And we can easily recall information, therefore it must be more important. But if you think about how that applies to you, can people easily recall your product offerings, your service offerings? Why do you think content marketing works so fantastically well? If we're showing up in people's emails and helping them repeatedly in relation to a product and service offering, then we're taking advantage of the availability heuristic. But if we're not helping, and we're just showing up with sales messages, we're negatively impacting the availability heuristic, and we're putting a negative emotion on that. So it's really important, if you need a little bit of science to make you be nice to your audience. First of all, I'm really sad for you that you need science validation for that. We should just be nice to people. But effectively, the availability heuristic is one of the things that's going to help you out. Okay, so that's our cognitive biases for your audience, but I want to do one for us. All right, so this is number 6, bonus round. So effectively, this is something that really negatively impacts us. This is the curse of knowledge, and the curse of knowledge is so beautifully explained in this cartoon. So you got your policeman, he's explaining to some dude how to get somewhere, and it's so clear in his mind because he knows the layout of the streets super well. But the person who is a stranger and who is lost has no fucking clue what's going on. And when we're talking to our audiences, we do this all the time because we're experts when it comes to our products and our services and our offerings. And we forget that we're talking to them on a different level. And part of the reason that there are prospects is because they have to get up to that level. And our job is to put ourselves in their shoes and help them understand why we do the things the way that we do them. So curse of knowledge is something that's going to be affecting us really negatively and killing our conversions because we're not talking to people in the way that they need to be spoken to. All right, now, everybody ready for my soapbox? Everybody ready for me to get real mad? So effectively, I'm a bit of a dickhead. You're all definitely dickheads. And marketing as an industry is a collective bag of dicks, right? This is where the code of conduct comes in, you're not allowed to get offended. Or if you're going to get offended, it's here. But yes, we are all assholes, completely. And marketing sucks for a lot of different reasons. But most of all, if you give us a channel, we're going to ruin it. Right? We'll definitely look at what we did with Facebook. It was like a cool place to hang out, and then we fucked that right up. And do you know what? We had the audacity to go, it's broken. It's broken. I don't like it anymore. Give me something else. We had the audacity to do that after we fucked it completely. Us, marketers, we did that. Anytime you see a grouping of people together, we're going to be like, yeah, we can market to them. Woo! Exciting. Anytime. So we're definitely dickheads for that. Also, you give us a cognitive bias, we're going to exploit the shit out of that, right? We're going to be like, whoa, they're making mistakes? That's my opportunity to get in there. Yeah, boy. That's what we do. We all say "you boy" a lot, because that's definitely something I say all the time. So we are not good when it comes to our audiences. We love manipulating people into doing things that they wouldn't necessarily do in a perfect situation. And every time I go to a conference and I see a talk about cognitive biases, it's always like, here's 10 cognitive biases that you can use to get people to do things they don't want to do. And I'm like, you're a dickhead. And we're all dickheads because we love that shit. Why are we all here? We're all here to find out how we can manipulate people into doing stuff they don't want to do, right? That makes us total assholes. But I'm going to go deeper. So we suck for a couple of different reasons. First, we love hacks, and we love tricks, and we love coercions. We show up for that shit all the time. We love that. We love doing that. We love tricking people into doing stuff. We also ignore strategy in favor of quick wins. Now, okay, fair enough. Everyone loves a quick win. And also, fair enough, our KPIs as an industry are fundamentally flawed. We should be focusing on customer lifetime value, not the conversion that's happened right now. So we have some significant challenges that as an industry, we need to change. But we're also biased around our own biases. In particular, the bandwagon effect. TikTok's a new exciting thing. It's not new and exciting anymore, but when it was, everybody was like, oh my God, I also need to dance like an idiot. Like, I need to do that. That's going to help me sell more shit, right? No, it's not. So we jump on the bandwagon because somebody else over there looks like they're succeeding with it. This is the thing that blows my mind. We don't even know that they're succeeding. They just look like they might be. So we're like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to do that thing immediately. We also get in-group bias, and this is in part why I'm standing on my little soapbox right now. And that is everybody's doing it, and because everybody in the in-group, everybody in email is doing that little trick to get people to click on something, it's okay for me to do it. Now I'm going to stand here and say really clearly, utilizing cognitive biases to increase your conversion rates is morally and ethically repugnant, and we are bad, and we should feel bad. Okay? All of us. We're all just going to have a group cry now, like in Midsummer, that creepy-ass movie, right? No. But it is bad, and we should feel bad. And you'll notice when I've been talking about cognitive biases, I've not told you the 5 cognitive biases that are significantly going to increase your conversion rates. I've told you the ones that are ruining your conversion rates. And every time I've referred to them as categories of biases, because the biases group together and they cascade off of one another. And we can't really manipulate people in the way that we think. And a lot of the time our experiments aren't repeatable. It could be anything that could be affecting that. So at the end of the day, utilizing cognitive biases, they're mistakes that the brain is making. And we should not be coercing people into doing things. Instead, we should be focusing on helping people do things and making conscious decisions. And if I have to give you a financial reason for it, if you help people own their own decision-making process, they are more likely to be a loyal customer, and you will increase your customer lifetime value. I shouldn't have to give you a financial reason, but if I have to, that is the financial reason. You will make more money if you are nice to people. Okay. And we also have information bias. And information bias is probably the worst one, and that's, we think that we need a lot of information to make a decision, and even once we've got enough information, we carry on researching it, like obsessively. We are total research whores. So information bias, definitely my problem. I'm currently writing my 2nd book. How long do you think I've been researching it for? Only 3 years. Do I need to carry on researching it? Absolutely fucking not. Do I have 3 psychology textbooks that are about this thick that I need to read? Yes. So information bias is a baddie. And at the end of the day, we're run by our own minions in the industry, and we're just trying to do the best that we can to get by. But now that I've told you why you suck, you can stop sucking, okay? It's our responsibility now to stop. We've drawn the line. Once you leave here, you're contractually obligated to be a nicer human being, okay? I just said that. Now I'm just going to see a bunch of people not leave the room and just like set up little tents in the corner and just be like, no, I want to hold my cognitive biases. Okay, so let's talk about how we can get rid of biases, because we should be debiasing instead of focusing on sort of manipulating biases. So if we think about those 4 categories, the first category, too much information. When we know that our audience is going to have too much information presented to them, we know that a couple of different things are going to happen. First and foremost, we're going to filter information out. The brain is going to go, too much, can't handle it, let's focus on smaller parts. What is it going to filter out? I don't know. Whatever it decides it's going to filter out at that point in time, we don't have control over that. The brain's just going to, and it might not filter out the nonsense. It might filter out some very important information because it wasn't in a font color that they liked. It could be anything that they decide to filter out. The other thing that's going to happen is it's going to pick the most meaningful bits. That's not necessarily what's actually meaningful to you. It's just whatever the minions decide is meaningful, which could be a banana at that point in time. We're drawn to things that stick out and are funny, which is something that marketing really likes to use. We like to use things that, look totally different. But then everybody starts to make things that look totally different. And then you have to find something else that looks totally different. And it's something that we can't rely on. It's not a sustainable or scalable strategy. We also notice things that are primed in memory or repeated often. This is that copywriting rule of 3. Tell them what you're going to tell them the thing, and then tell them what you've just told them. There's a reason that it works, and the availability heuristic is something you've got to thank for that. And of course, we like to confirm our own beliefs. Now, if you ever know that your audience is going to have too much information, there are 2 specific things that you can do. First, you can simplify. You can create summary boxes. You can give people a little bit more information and context around something. And the second is you can repeat. Do the copywriting rule of 3s, especially if you're getting them to click through from an email to something else, right? Reduce that transitional velocity between clicking through from the email and landing on a landing page. Okay, what about when we have not enough meaning? We don't have enough meaning. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the dots that probably don't exist. We'll make them up if we need to, because we're desperate to find stories in sparse data. We want meaning. We are desperate for meaning all the time. We're also going to generalize, and we'll fill in characteristics or stereotypes. We'll do all sorts of nasty things to help save in processing power. We will oversimplify numbers and data. Do not kill your audience with data, for God's sake, please. Even if they are nerds, provide them with context as you're doing it. And of course, we're going to project. And we're always going to try and take some information from something else and project it onto something else. Now, if you are suffering with not enough meaning, the very obvious solution, I'm sorry to be saying it, is that we need to provide meaning, all right? Don't wait for your audience to divine their own meaning. You tell them exactly the meaning you want them to take away. Make it easy for the brain. Reduce the cognitive demand. Tell them what they should be taking away from that. You are the expert. Then be really explicit with stuff. Don't beat around the bush. This is the advantage of being South African. We don't beat around the bush. We just set it on fire and then see what's left afterwards, right? So we make great copywriters. No, I'm joking. I mean, we do, but we swear a lot. So you need to be really explicit in your copywriting. Provide that meaning, but also don't let them take away additional stuff. Make your call to actions really, really clear. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. Don't let the brain wander off and let the minions try and decide what they should be doing. Okay, but what about when we need to act fast? This is probably the worst one. This is the one that I see marketers use most frequently. We try to add a little bit of urgency to stuff to get people to make a decision. Why aren't they making a decision? Previous to that, probably because your thing wasn't as good enough, right? And now we decide we're just going to pressure them and hope that they don't notice all the flaws and everything. Quick, limited time off deal, go, go, go. Yes, I know that it works, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing to do. So the first thing we're going to do when we need to act fast is we're going to be overconfident in our own abilities. We've all been in that meeting where someone has said, can you do that thing by then? And I've been like, yeah, I can do that. You get off the phone, you're like, what the fuck? I can't do that, like at all. But it's a stress response. If you don't say yes, you might die, right? So effectively, we'll be really overconfident in our own abilities. And when you pressurize people into doing something, they'll have overconfidence, and then they won't be able to do it afterwards, which means they're not going to be a happy customer. They will also favor the immediate. and the most relatable over anything else. We like short-term gains. We find it really hard to think long-term as a species because we're getting to the next day. So try and help people see what they can get immediately, what that immediate next step is. We also prefer completion over anything else. This is the sunk cost fallacy. So if somebody is already partway through implementing something else, you're trying to get them to switch provider or do something else, you've got to make it hella easy. Otherwise, we're not going to do it. So Bulb was an energy provider in the UK up until really recently with the energy crisis and the shutdown. I think they're being owned by EDF now. They did this amazingly. They introduced into the industry the concept of, oh, it's okay, we'll switch all your stuff for you. You don't have to do that. So they made it really easy to change provider. They dealt with everything. You just had to sign the contract, that was it. And it was an amazing way to get over the sunk cost fallacy because people have put time and effort into something and they don't want to sort of remove that time and effort somewhere else. We also prefer autonomy and status if we have to act quickly. So we like to be in control, but we also don't want to disrupt the status quo too much. So be aware of that. We want to be rebels, but not too much of a rebel, okay? Especially in the UK. And we like to avoid ambiguity because we might die. So if you know that your audience needs to act faster, they need to make a time-pressured sort of decision, summarize information. Credit card companies have done this really, really well when you have to make short-term loans. They give you a summary sheet at the end of it. That was something that came from Nudge, which is another great book. Also, Nudge, really interesting. Where are you? We had a conversation about Nudge earlier. Yes. Remember that Nudge as a book was written to help people make better decisions, and marketers went, hey, I see you over there. I can manipulate the living shit out of you. We can do that. This is exactly why we're nasty people. So summarize and highlight information if at all possible, or highlight it. That's an interesting, you didn't spot that one, Jess. She spotted 2 other spelling mistakes. I didn't ask her to. She was just like, I've been through your slides and you spell like a dickhead. I'm going to fix that for you. She didn't spot that one though. And it's highlighted as well. I mean, there's like so many things in there that we could have caught, but hey, we missed it. We missed it so bad. So yeah, if we need to act fast, summarize and highlight the appropriate information for people. And then if we need to either encode new information or we need to recall information, there's a bunch of shit that's going to happen. We're going to keep only what's useful. And again, it might not fucking be useful at all. It might be that that had a really pretty picture associated with it, and I like that picture, so I went for that option, right? We'll also pick out a few things and we'll discard the rest. So we won't remember all of the information. We like to save space. So again, confirmation bias in there. And we will transfer and conflate things. So if you know that we have to recall or encode information, keep it simple. Keep it really easy for your audience to understand. Remember, they're minions at the end of the day. And show them the big picture. Okay, talking about big pictures. Let's talk flowcharts. So when it comes to actually utilizing this information, making it happen in real life, there's a couple of things that we can do. First and foremost, we need to remember that email doesn't start at email, because your audience doesn't see your emails as an individual silo that this person created this and the rest of the marketing doesn't matter. Our experience with you and your email starts right at the beginning when we start consuming content. So this flowchart, by the way, is the automation journey that we implement into businesses and what we won multiple awards for. So you're more than welcome to just steal it. It's also on my website if you just want to steal it. It's the process that we use to put marketing automation in place. Now, first and foremost, clicky. First and foremost, we have data-driven keywords that we utilize to understand how people consume information. I think I'm missing a picture. Yeah, I'm missing a picture at the beginning. So there is supposed to be a big circle around that bit at the front there, the orange stuff. If you're colorblind, I don't know what color you're seeing, sorry. But this stuff up at the top here. So when people come through to your content, what we're really good at doing when we're creating SEO and we're doing all sorts of cool shit is we're really good at utilizing keywords. And we're really good at doing our research and understanding search intent. We're really good at doing that, but we don't do that with email. We never validate the types of content that we're going to send out with email. We never actually think about whether or not that's meaningful. And we've done all of that research to create content. So we should be utilizing that information to make sure that the content we're sending to our audience is meaningful. So do a little bit of get involved with your SEO peeps. I know they're weird. It's okay. We're also really weird, just in a different way. Then when it comes to lead magnets, when people are signing up for various different lead magnets, various different opt-in points, whatever they're signing up for, we should be mirroring that content. We should be really focusing on what they've signed up for to make sure that we're giving them a meaningful experience afterwards. One of the things we want to do is we want to cascade awareness. So we want to take people through awareness stages, which I'm going to let you in on a little bit. And I'm not talking about awareness, consideration, and decision. I'm talking about the actual awareness journey that we go through before we purchase something. And then when it comes to where email actually gets involved, when we are following up off of the back of a lead magnet, for fuck's sakes, don't just send one email. I will burn all of you in the hellfires. I might do. It was actually considered by Kamal that my title should be Demon, and I was like, I kind of like that. But effectively, don't send one email. You've got to be sending multiple emails, right? And when you're doing that, add value on top of what they asked for. They are literally telling you by their behavior what they're interested in, where they are in their journey, and where they should be going next. Please don't ignore that. Only send one email and then add them into the newsletter. There is a reason someone signed up for that lead magnet. Okay, we need to add value on top of what they asked for. As we then transition into sales, it's also missing. I'm sad. Such pretty little galaxy circles. But the cell block, the little blue box, sorry for the colorblind people. As you're going through, people are really interested at the sales point about pricing, how you utilize your stuff, avoid that ambiguity bias. They want to know about objections. They want to understand. People have objections not because they don't want to buy from you, but because they want to buy from you. And it is our job in email to be supporting sales through that process. Also, if you are in B2B or B2G, so B2G is business to government, and you have like really long sales cycles, so even for the B2C people, which are really high purchase intents, when you're doing that and you have like 6 month plus sales series, you should have a sales motivational series, which is basically just bottom of funnel content that you're sending to people over an extended period of time, because not only are you helping people the ambiguity bias with the availability heuristic, but it also means sales can have contextual sales conversations. So you should really think about doing one of those. And then right at the top, the long-term nurture, so top right-hand corner, we should be utilizing search to validate interest in certain subtopics. We should not be sitting down thinking, what the fuck am I going to create the newsletter on this month? We should be utilizing the data that we have available to us. We also want to cater all of the content that we create for awareness, and we want to be doing something really, this is really interesting the way these slides are working now. I'm blaming Jess because she changed. Yes, I'm blaming Jess. It might not be your fault, but I blame you anyway. What we want to do is we want to track with the long-term nurture. So any type of stuff that you're sending over a longer period of time to a larger audience, we want to use their engagement to segment them. And I mean progressive profiling. So if we're clever with the types of content that we put inside those emails, we can learn progressively more about who they are and offer them the next appropriate step. Right? Progressive profiling is not what HubSpot says it is, which is filling out a little bit more information on a form each time round. It's tracking people's behavior, and depending on the behavior that they're displaying with your emails and with the stuff that's on the website, offering them more of the appropriate next step. And that's how you take one lead, especially in B2B, and turn it into multiple sales opportunities. Because they will tell you based on their behavior what they're interested in. We do not have to guess. We never have to guess. Now, how do we actually put that in real life? So one of the things that we know that the minions love, and if we want to keep them happy and we want to make them happy with our emails, is minions love specificity, right? They absolutely love specificity because they've got a job to do. They've been sent out there to look for specific types of information, and if we can provide that information, then they're happy. But what do we do when we create content? We just like vaguely, whatever the fuck we feel like it. We do random acts of content, right? We throw content out there and just hope some of it is going to stick. Well, we can avoid that from now on. So awareness as a journey is something that was created by Eugene Schwartz in the 1970s. So he suggested this in his book called Breakthrough Advertising. I use it because it's a slightly sexier version of the general buying process that the brain goes through before it decides to purchase something. Just psychology makes everything really boring, and marketers make things a little bit sexier. So I utilize his. So everyone starts out completely unaware that they have a problem, that they have an issue. Then something amazing happens. There's a catalyst. Whatever the case is, we suddenly become aware we have a problem or an issue. This is what Google calls the zero moment of truth, the point at which we turn to the internet for help or turn to our friends and families for a little bit more information. This is a massive research phase for us. We display a lot of search intent. We do a lot of Google foo, and we learn a lot about what our problem is and our challenges. We do not want to buy a product or a service at this point. We're just looking for information. Then something happens. We learn enough about our product, about our problem. We learn about the sort of breadth and width of it all. And then we become solution aware and we start looking for solutions. We start looking for products. Start looking for things that we want to purchase and things that we might want to consume. And as we become solution aware, our search behavior changes significantly. And what is valuable to us changes significantly. And now we're like, okay, do I do it myself? Do I get someone else to do it? Do I bring someone else in-house? Whatever the various different things are, we're looking at different categories of solutions. Then we start to do something really important. We start to create our own criteria for what looks good and what doesn't look good and what suits us. And that criteria tips us into product aware, where we go, okay, I want to do it myself. What are all the options and what are the products and services that are available to me to do that specific thing? That's when we start looking at individual brands and individual products. And again, our behavior changes and what is valuable to us changes because now we're comparing and contrasting options. And then as we've created our own criteria and we've got rid of everything else, we become most aware. And most aware is when we're like, okay, I know what I want. Now I need to find the right provider. Let's look at budgets. Let's look at comparisons. Let's look at reviews. Let's look at case studies and testimonials. And again, our behavior changes. Now, when we are doing this with SEO, SEOs are pretty good at matching search intent to the type of stuff. I say pretty good because I speak at SEO conferences and I know that they're bad sometimes. But in email, do we ever pay attention to that? Not a fuck. We don't. Someone signs up, and by virtue of the type of thing that they have signed up for, we know where they are in their journey because they've told us, based on what they're looking at, based on what they're clicking on, based on what they're signing up for, exactly where they are and where they need to go next. And the challenge is businesses like to focus down here. They like to focus at most aware because that's where the decision is happening, right? That's the fun, juicy, exciting stuff. But if we go higher up through the journey, we get more people, but we also get more relationship building capability, right? We get an opportunity to help people in a more meaningful way, and we also get a way to sort of build that customer lifetime value out. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can create content plans that are catered towards each of those individual stages so that you can see that you have a progressive journey, and you can map your emails to that. You can then track and segment people depending on what they're signing up for. You know exactly the types of emails that you can then send them based on the types of content that you're providing. And on top of that, you can take lead magnet ideas for each of those stages, which means you know when someone consumes that, they need to go to the next stage. And there's no more asking whether or not we're going to send this week and whether it's useful for the audience, because based on their behavior that they're displaying, they're telling you what they want. So we need to be making things minion friendly, and the best way we can do that is we can make it easy. We can provide context the entire time, and that is for this step and for the next step, preempt their behavior, and we can control the frame and the route that they're going down to make sure that it's as easy and as contextual as possible. Okay, let's round that up because I know we're ready for mini golf, right? This is Friday night. So, first off, be aware of bias and the fact that it's going to happen. We can't control for it. But what we can do is we can mitigate it in as best a way as possible, and we can help people make more conscious decisions. Provide context all the time. Context is king when it comes to bias and helping people make appropriate decisions. And lean into consciousness, not coercion. Help people make better choices. Don't manipulate them. Don't be bad. Be good. Be a force for good, guys. And KIMF. So keep it minion friendly all the way through. All right, and there's that cheat sheet. All right, thanks guys. We're done now. We're done.